Would you believe me if there was a simple strategy that you could do, that I do every day, that reduces your chance of getting caught up with COVID? It is so simple that nobody talks about it. Actually, nobody really believes it's true. But I'm here to tell you about the science because it's extremely important as we are moving into another transition phase around the pandemic. I know a lot of people have told you that it's all over and everything is fine and everybody has been happy in the summer. Just remember, in the Northern Hemisphere, we're coming into winter. And every single year, we have thought it was over in the summer, only to be hit in the winter again. The only difference this year is we were already hit in the summer. So we know we are likely to have a problem. But here is the latest news, and this is what I want to keep you updated on. So, this is shared just a few hours ago from the BBC, and there is a new XEC COVID variant starting to spread. So, and this was done by Michelle Roberts, digital editor. And so, this was identified in Germany in June. And so, they started to see some cases of it there, but it is now spreading across the world. It's likely that this is going to be the new variant that's coming. Now, it seems to have a slight transmission advantage over the other variants, but they still think that vaccines should offer good protection. I'll make no comments here at this point as I don't want to get into any further trouble. But the point is that whatever you do, you need to be in the middle of the road. I'll explain what I mean. I have observed a few cohorts of people. There's some people who are absolutely terrified and they're up to number, I don't know what shot, and they'll, really scared about it. I don't think that's good. It causes psychological damage. Then there is another cohort who thinks this is just absolute rubbish. There is not even been a virus, not even a pandemic. That's again another side of the road that I think you need to avoid. Where I need you to be is to understand that we are still within a period of time where you have high circulation of virus. A lot of people say, well, the infection is mild. As I tell you, it's not about whether or not the infection is mild. It's about what it does to your body after you've had it. And so many people, I've been trying to see if I can raise awareness to companies as well. And you look at the numbers, the amount of companies that are struggling because employees are sick is unbelievable. You're talking about up to 18% of their workforce in some companies, and they just can't get them better. And that's because they underestimate the impact that COVID can have. And so, this is why I said you need to be savvy. You need to understand what's going on, and you need to try and think about ways that you can mitigate what is likely to happen. And if you don't believe it for you, at least do it for your family members, because I'm telling you that this condition in the context of the elderly, goodness gracious, if you are young, fit, and healthy with a good immune system, fine. Maybe you won't be as severely affected. But an elderly person with comorbidities, don't underestimate what it can do. Here is the principle, and this is what will help you to understand why you see a difference between different groups. The virus can't penetrate the mucosal barrier if it's well up to date with regards to especially natural immunity. It's very difficult. And the mucosal barrier is like a skin on the inside of the airways because it has a very sophisticated immune system. That's why I have this black line here with IgA antibodies. Very difficult for the virus to penetrate that in somebody who has good natural immunity. However, what you have to be aware of, because immunity fluctuates, if the virus penetrates that barrier and gets into the systemic immunity, that's where it gets into the lymph nodes and the bloodstream and starts circulating. That's where, from my autoimmune research, we need to be very, very worried because it can trigger autoimmune responses, and it doesn't matter who it is. Now, I do agree that largely my concern has been in the vaccinated cohorts, that this is a higher risk for them, but it's still a risk for everyone. The challenge is to not get the virus into the bloodstream. And that's where I'm trying to educate people. Every strategy you can do to reduce that risk will protect you and protect your loved ones. And so today I'm talking again about nitric oxide because without an understanding of this very, very simple principle, it's so easy to do. There really is no excuse for people not to understand the science. So here is essentially what we've put together. This is the ebook that we've done, and you'll find it in the description. I've put it in one of the Learn World courses. So you have a whole course on nitric oxide, which I'll show you. Now, this is essentially telling you about nitric oxide and the sinuses. It's a gas and your body needs it. This is what also is used in terms of on in terms of Viagra. Viagra has an impact on nitric oxide. This is why it helps with erections and so on. So it's very important with blood flow and so on. It's in collaboration with Lumientia. So this we've done some time ago and done a book on humming heroes. But this short ebook, it's not very long. It's just giving you some basic principles about nitric oxide and the sinuses, critically the importance of humming and how it boosts nitric oxide production. Now, as I said before, if you are not particularly worried yourself, you need to educate other people so that they understand what is going on because it is of value to everyone. And you have in your cohort of people you may talk to, they may say, well, I don't know about that. I don't know if this is just some woo-ha thing that is not related to science. Well, what you will have then is when you use the ebook, you will have a large source of references. So we've put in all the references we could find about nitric oxide, sinuses. They're all here. And so if anybody says, well, I don't believe that, you can just pull out your little ebook and say, look, these are all the papers that are talking about nitric oxide and the importance, especially in the sinuses. So this is why I'm saying it's so simple. It's free. Even if you don't want to do the course, you can still actually just get the ebook for free and you can learn what's going on. But the essence of what we were doing when we were doing this principle of this course was to try and educate people about this simple concept with regards to nitric oxide. And this is it here. It's been discounted. But as I said, if you go to the link, you don't have to do the course, but it has lots of valuable information. This is where I break down what's in the ebook. So it will help you to understand what is important about it. And so you can get everything, and you can see here for free nitric oxide ebook. So you can get it here. So make sure you do that as a minimum so that you are well prepared for what is likely to happen. A lot of people will say, well, why is this such a problem, especially in highly vaccinated regions? And this will help you to get the point across. And this is why it's a risk for everybody. As I said, everybody's fighting against preventing the virus breaking through their immune system. But it seems to be circulating in highly vaccinated regions because of this very simple thing about immune refocusing. This is what Gert has been talking about from the start. It would drive variants, and on top of that, you have immune refocusing. So we have the variants being driven. Now we have XEC coming along. Now, what happens with the immune system, and this is just a little image to help me to describe it. You have in red the original Wuhan virus, and that's what your immune system had faced initially. Now, the thing about in the natural immune system, it tends not to focus as much on the spike protein. But what happened, it seems, when we use spike protein vaccines, especially very powerful ones, it seems to have locked the immune system in the red pattern. So the immune system will recognize the lady in orange red, but not the one in blue, purple, or even a yellow one or a green one. And so you have the immune system, which is just looking for the red haired woman. And that's what we call immune refocusing. And so every time a new variant comes along, it's very difficult for the immune system to be able to cope with the transition. And this virus is very sophisticated at hiding from the immune system. So when you layer that into it, you then have a situation where it is very difficult to prevent the virus breaking through the mucosal immunity. And it's such an important principle. Just remember what it looks like. And I'll show you again. So because of that immune refocusing, it increases the probability that the virus here can break through the mucosal barrier and then get into the bloodstream here. And then this is where I describe this almost as a ricochet bullet. Once it gets inside and starts bouncing around and impacting on the immune system and triggering autoimmune responses because it binds to all these different proteins, that's where you have what I describe in terms of what I've been looking at. I am worried about the cytokine storm. This is spike triggered autoimmune response mechanism. It's not the same as the cytokine storm we had early in the pandemic. This is now more about the fact that the immune system is in overreact mode. And because it's in overreact mode, what then happens is that it starts to trigger responses that damage, especially blood vessels. So when I'm talking about things like embalmer's clots, I think that a lot of that is because of overactivation of the immune system. And so we are seeing these kinds of patterns. They are very subtle. People sometimes only have symptoms of fatigue and headaches, and, or sometimes they have no symptoms at all. And this is what you'll be seeing with friends and family members. Then suddenly they've had a stroke, suddenly they're diagnosed with cancer. It seems to come out of nowhere. It means that in the background, there is likely to have been chronic immune activation. That's the bit that we need to try and mitigate. Anything that can help it is well worth it. And so this is where that principle of the nitric oxide comes in. And just so that people understand, it is a gas. It's not a, it is very unusual. It's a very remarkable molecule in the context of how the body works. But just so you are aware, and I go through these things in much more detail in the course, but just so you are aware as to the multiple things it has an effect on, it has an effect on the blood vessels, vascular homeostasis. This is what I said. It works with regards to um, Pfizer's drug here, Viagra, and it increases neurotransmission. This is where it has an impact on platelet activation and clotting. It reduces inflammation. It helps with wound healing. It reduces oxidative stress. It improves sexual function, all from this gas, nitric oxide. So the more you know about it, the better it is. And that's the principle. Better education, better understanding of the science will help you not only to help yourself, but to help those around you. There's a responsibility because I know a lot of my audience are the ones who resisted. And I recognize that a lot of people are upset, but I think that there is a responsibility to try and still educate. There's no point at this stage trying to be right. I think people have accepted when you look at what has happened with booster doses, they've probably accepted that you probably were right. And so what we need now are we need people to educate. And so your job is not to overload people, but just to help them to understand the science. You take the science to them and critically give them simple strategies that will help them to improve or mitigate some of the damage. For me, every time I'm out and about, I could probably be wearing a mask, which I probably should do more often. I'll not get into that argument, but I just hum. I just imagine that when I start humming, that puts a bubble over my head and reduces the capacity of the virus to penetrate my mucosal immune system, prevents it from getting into the sinuses. The sinuses act as a reservoir. And would you believe nitric oxide is also antiviral and antibacterial? It is a remarkable molecule. Learn about it. learn how you can use simple strategies. You don't need a lot of extra supplements for this one. You just need to hum, sing, hum, talk. As long as there's vibration in and around the sinuses, it will naturally produce nitric oxide. It is absolutely remarkable. And so that's my gift for you today, is that, I mean, I'd certainly like you to do the course, but even if you didn't want to do it, please remember that this information is extremely valuable. I'll show you again what you get in terms of the ebook. Just remember what you get here. Talks about the sinuses, the role of the sinuses in health, how you can boost nitric oxide production, breathing exercises and nitric oxide, everything about it. And as usual, it has a bunch of references just in case you want to help somebody who is a little bit more skeptical to understand the science around it. So let's get prepared for what's coming. I predict that this winter is going to be an absolute nightmare. As I said, I've been trying to reach out to companies. You need to protect your staff. You need to be looking out for them, putting simple measures in place that can potentially mitigate the absolute damage that it can have to your workforce. We have a lot of challenges ahead of us, but I believe that if we work together, we can find solutions. And critically, for those people who have the choice not to take another booster, remember, if this kicks off properly again, you're almost guaranteed somebody's going to have the bright idea to mandate again. So we all need to work together and try and protect as many people as we can. Have a great evening. Look forward to bringing you more science in the near future.